Welcome to Rare Aware New Zealand. I'm Alana Peck. This podcast is dedicated to raising awareness and sharing the voices of people living with rare disorders in New Zealand. Around 1 in 17 New Zealanders are affected by a rare condition. For many, finding answers and support can take years. Here we speak with individuals, families, and experts to help build greater understanding, connection, and support for the rare disorder community. Thank you for listening and being part of the Rare Aware journey. For more information on Rare Disorders New Zealand, you can visit us at www.raredisorders.org.nz. We recorded this episode on the fly, so you might hear a few little sound imperfections along the way. Thanks for bearing with us.
Welcome, James, to Rare Aware. Thank you very much for inviting me into your home in Auckland. I'm really keen to hear about your journey with Rare Disorders New Zealand and would like to know a bit more about the passion you have for this cause.
Oh, well, welcome. Really great to have you here. It's great to be the first guest on the Rare Aware podcast. It's really exciting. I'm really excited for some of the conversations that are coming up as well as some of the other guests that you have. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for the community to hear from each other about the experience of Rare.
That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to exploring and sharing with more families through New Zealand. Before we dive into talking about advocacy, I'm really interested to learn about your story. And I understand that you probably had never expected your life would go down this pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about this earlier today, and it's not. I remember I talked to Sue Haldane, and some people might remember that Sue's name was on the petition for establishing a rare disorder strategy. And we were talking about the fact that you don't wake up one morning and expect you're going to become an advocate for rare disorders. This is not a career pathway that you have planned from an early age. And so it was unexpected. And I just sort of found myself in a place where I realized that I had a voice. I was able to articulate what was going on with me, and that I could lend that voice to the work of others. And so, yeah, that was something which I realised actually sitting in a hospital bed. So you have a lot of time to think sometimes when you're sitting in a hospital bed, and I was there for a couple of weeks and thinking, well, I should be doing something about this. And Rare Disorders New Zealand was the kind of the pathways that I found in that situation. But the whole journey started much further back. My uncle passed away about 15 years ago, and he had some serious heart conditions. And now he didn't always look after himself, to be fair, and he was a workaholic. And so I suppose a lot of the time you sort of think, right, well, sure, he has heart disease, right? And you don't necessarily attribute that to a rare disorder. But it turned out that he did have a rare disorder. He had Fabry's disease, and he passed away far too young. And as a result of us learning about his rare disorder and learning it was a genetic disorder, my brothers and I got tested, as did many others in our family. And unfortunately, we all had the gene for Fabry's disease. So that's my older brother Tom and my younger brother Simon. And it's been a bit of a family journey. Now, at the time that I got that diagnosis, I was in my mid-30s. I was running marathons, and I love trail running. I was mountain biking to work every day. I was teaching martial arts. I did not, I didn't really drink. I never smoked at all. And, I felt like the picture of health. And so to be told that I had a serious life-limiting disease seemed really out of kilter with my life. But really the reality of it hit home in about 2018, 2019 when I started experiencing more symptoms. In 2019, I collapsed in my kitchen, and when I came to, found myself lying on the ground staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was doing there. Collapsed again about a minute later, and I was actually making coffee, It was early in the morning, and getting up, I was making coffee for my wife. So when I finally came round and stopped shaking, I stood up, poured a cup of coffee, wandered down to my wife, who was still sitting in bed, unaware any of this was going on, and said, "Look, I seem to have fallen over. I think I might need to go to the doctor." And that was when the reality of living with a red disorder actually kicked in for me. At that stage, as I said, I went to the hospital and I started thinking, okay, how can I connect with other people who have this disorder? And I was sitting there with a laptop in my hospital bed, found Red Disorders New Zealand, thought, maybe I'll volunteer. And I did a fundraiser that year. I think I raised about $4,500 or something along those lines. And one thing led to another. I got asked to join the board, and then I quickly got asked to be the chair. And I did feel a little bit railroaded at the time, but a very convincing argument was presented to me by the current chair. And so I just thought, well, okay, this is something I can do. And although it was all quite new to me, I thought, well, I do have a passion for actually making this more visible. It struck me just how invisible Rare Disorders New Zealand and the cause was at that time, and I thought, well, I'm going to lend my weight to trying to make a change there.
It was like turning your heartache and your new journey through life into something positive and shaping that journey moving forward.
It absolutely was, because I had seen myself as so fit and healthy, and then to be so incapacitated. It was a real shock to the way that I saw myself, and I needed to make sense of it. I needed to have some meaning, some sense of purpose out of all of that. And when I talk about volunteering for Rare Disorders, I think a lot of people think, oh, that's so good of you. And I think, well, actually, no, it's so good of Rare Disorders to let me do that because it has given me that sense of purpose when I really needed it, because it's given me that meaning from what I felt I had lost, to think, well, actually, rather than losing something, I've gained a new perspective. Rather than not being able to do what I was doing, I've actually gained an opportunity to connect with an entirely new community and to do something that means something to us. And so I wouldn't say that having a rare disorder is necessarily a gift, but at the same time, there's a lot of wonderful things that have come from that experience.
I would totally agree with you there. It's like we're all on the same journey through life. We all take different paths, and some of us come across extra bridges, but building extra bridges and getting through them, over them, and connecting with new communities definitely helps. I think in a situation where you have a rare disorder, you are 1 in 300,000 in New Zealand, but you have this massive community and family and place where you can be yourself, but you can all cheer each other on and get through those moments, even when the rare disorders are so different.
Absolutely. And I think one of the power of the work we do for Rare Disorders New Zealand is that you are connected with people who understand the issues you're going through, even though you'll have things that are very unique to you. But the overlap, that kind of the stuff that is in common, it's so important to find those things in common and realize that other people have gone through them, and sometimes to get a new perspective on them as well. I feel very lucky in my life. I feel I've had a really interesting and fulfilling life, and that I haven't really been limited by disability. And I see other people facing such enormous challenges and who so struggle to get their voice heard, that I do feel a sense of responsibility to use that luck that I have to amplify their voice. And that's a real privilege. And I can really understand that privilege. as a privilege because of the upbringing I've had, because of the education I've had, and because of the good things that I've been lucky enough to enjoy.
And just going back a wee bit there about sharing with other people and seeing that some people can't get through some of those challenges. Myself personally, I find that if I can help one family not feel the way that I felt at the time of my child's diagnosis, then I'm happy. I've won that day.
Yeah.
It's a real, we can either turn around and ignore what's happening to us, or we can move forward with it and shape it for our future children as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed my view of what success is, because success is not curing rare disorders somehow magically, waving a wand and suddenly everyone's better. I would love for there to be a magical treatment for me and then I'm just better and I don't have to worry about it. That doesn't really exist. But there are still a lot of ways that we succeed along the way. And sometimes they're really small. And we have this enormous fight, this enormous challenge in front of us sometimes to get rare disorders recognised, to get them treated, to get better, more equitable healthcare for a lot of vulnerable communities. It seems like this enormous mountain, this enormous burden, and yet everywhere along the way there are all these small wins all of the time, and there's things like you've spoken about, one family feeling less isolated. You'll never know the value of that in their lifetime, and yet it could be huge. It could change lives for decades to come. And I think of it that with every small win we've had along the way, both as an organisation and an individual advocacy, that sometimes it's those small wins. It's one family, it's one child that's going to lead a more full life than they would have otherwise. And I may not meet that child, but I know that they exist somewhere. And that is my new measure of success. And it's completely different from this. I ran a business for years. What thinking about success in business and making lots of money or all of those. It's not like any of that at all. It's those small little wins along the way where you've had an influence. And I've spoken to other advocates about this in the past. I spoke with the president of MS New Zealand, and he said, sometimes you have to think in decades rather than thinking you're going to come in and be a white knight and fix this right away. Think in decades of the impact. Long after you're gone, in 50, 60 years' time, are people going to be leading a better life because of what you've done now? And it was a really challenging thought. But I think it's something for us all to keep in mind in advocacy, because day to day it can be really hard. It can be really grueling. You feel like you're getting nowhere. But ask yourself, are people going to be experiencing a better life because of what you've done today? And very often, I'd say almost every day, you can tell yourself, yes, they will. And I think that's a really important thing to help motivate you and keep that energy up.
I 100% agree with you. It's not about the right today, right now, right me.
Yeah.
That bubble around yourself. It's around those other community groups out there. We have 157 support groups of Rare Disorders New Zealand.
Yeah.
And while all the disorders are different, a lot of them cross over when it comes to health and medicine access and care support and just community, especially being so rural, our country being so spread out. It is really hard for families that are really isolated. How did you, as a family, deal with feeling lost and isolated? Like you've talked about yourself, but how as a family did you come together and work through this?
Yeah, it's a little tricky actually. It's my two brothers who share this disorder live in Australia. I have cousins in Australia who also have Fabry, and I've got an uncle in the UK who has it. And of course, it's come through from my mum's side, so mum also has Fabry. And it's from me passed to my two daughters. So being a genetic disorder is very much a family thing. right? So we all have to understand that. And then there's the other half of my family that doesn't have the disorder as well. So I have 3 brothers who don't have it from my dad's family. And so really for all of us sort of getting our heads around it and understanding it as a family, it's been challenging at times. And we haven't always been on the same page, I guess, because we haven't always been experiencing the same things at the same time. I think my older brother experienced symptoms before I did, and before I really got my head around what I might experience, because he was going through it first. And like I said, I still felt super healthy. I just felt like, oh yeah, I'm still bulletproof. This isn't going to affect me. And so I probably didn't really appreciate what the challenges he was facing at the time. And then, of course, I caught up to him a few years after that. And so, yeah, for me, it really sort of came home. And it's been challenging for my wife and girls too. I've no doubt. I mean, they have been incredibly supportive, but, we've just tried to be as honest and open about what's going on as possible. And not down about it. Not looking at what we can't achieve or the negative consequences, but more looking at, okay, how do we adjust? My sister-in-law, who has been living with her own rare condition, unrelated to all of this for decades, gave me some wonderful advice about being able to be flexible and to adapt. That sometimes the best laid plans just get derailed. And you just have to be ready to deal with that and be accepting of it, and then figure out what the new reality is. And, just her insights on that have been really, really helpful for helping me and the whole family sort of adjust as we go.
Yeah, we use the term in my family the new normal.
Yeah.
Like, no day is normal, but today this is our new normal and we'll roll with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's a big part of it, because sometimes things change. I found out last week that my pacemaker ICD has failed, and so I'm going to need to get it extracted and replaced. And on top of all of the challenges that are facing me the end of this year, that was like, oh, how am I going to fit that in? Yeah. I've got a really busy week. I've got a board meeting coming up. I can't afford to have surgery. But of course, I can't afford not to have the surgery. So you have to then go, so the new normal is that we're going to work that out.
Yeah.
And you learn to roll with that to a certain extent. You learn to put aside some of that anxiety. It's still there, and sometimes it comes back to bite you. So you try and put it aside and just deal with the next thing.
Yeah, it's like a calendar is a great idea, but it never goes to plan. And if it does, then that's a win for that day.
Yeah.
It definitely is. And you need to just bring it back to present times, and surgery is more important than a board meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm still in my head. I'm still, still got that Superman complex. I still reckon I can do both. Whether I can or not remains to be seen. But I am learning to be a little bit more patient around this stuff and realize that I need to kind of make sure I'm looking after myself. I'm definitely not bulletproof. I understand that. And that's one of the pieces of perspective I've gained by having a read disorder is actually, things like being super fit and super able-bodied. All of those things are temporary for all of us to one degree or another.
We get to 40.
Yeah. And so having a little bit of perspective on the fact that they don't necessarily need to define you, that you can adapt. Yes. And in fact still thrive and still have a great life regardless.
Yes, definitely. So I heard some news the other day that you are on the move.
Yeah. So it's something which I know a lot of people have faced, where treatment is available overseas but not here. Obviously, I've been involved in a few campaigns around medicine access in the last few years. And in this case, access to treatment for Fabry's disease is not available in New Zealand. And with my symptoms progressing, we just reached a point where I realised that we had to move. Treatment is available in Australia. Both of my brothers received treatment. We know because of that the treatment is effective in their case. And so there's a really good case for me getting treatment there. Now, I have wanted to stay here. My community's here. My home is here. I love my work, and that's here. And the idea of uprooting ourselves and moving was not. It's been something we've tried to put off as long as possible. Particularly because of the advocacy I do as well. We've really been trying to ensure that treatment will be made available here. But I'm just running out of time to do that. And my health is compromised the longer I stay. I really love living here, but it's literally killing me. So I need to move. And it's a really hard decision to make. We had the Fabry support group has had a number of meetings with Pharmac in the last year trying to move things along. We have 3 treatments that are sitting on the options for investment list. The first of those treatments, I think the first application for treatment was placed in 2006. That's almost 20 years now we've been waiting. Although we've been able to do a good job of getting those treatments closer to funding, they're still not funded yet. And in conversations I've had with the Pharmac team, I'm not full of confidence that they'll be funded anytime soon. And it's a common story with any rare disorder treatment, is that they do tend to sit lower down the priority list just because of the smaller group of people that will benefit from them, and because, generally speaking, the higher cost. And I really take issue with the kind of cost-saving approach. And I've been on record saying that, and Rare Disorders New Zealand has worked really hard, not only with Pharmac, but with the government to change that mentality. But in this case, it's deeply personal. This is my own life we're talking about. And so it hurts. And it does make me at times very angry and frustrated. To be told to your face that your life isn't worth saving is brutal. And I've had that conversation on more than once with Pharmac. And the last time that happened was a couple of months ago. And unfortunately, at that point, that was where I just thought, well, we have to go. And unfortunately, that means stepping down as chair of Rare Disorders New Zealand too. So I'm it's heart-wrenching to step aside from this advocacy. I probably won't step aside altogether. I'll still be involved. I'll just be further away.
I'm very pleased to hear that.
So I'll still be involved in some way, and the other trustees have been wonderful and saying, "Oh, you've got to drag you back in." I will need a little bit of time to get settled over there and figure out what to do next. Yeah.
So if Pharmac tomorrow decided to fund the medication, you could stay in New Zealand with your family, your children in school, your wife in work, you in work, your mum, your community, everything.
Absolutely.
So all it takes is them to sign the line.
Yeah, I mean, if they did and they said, "Yep, we've changed our mind, we're going to fund it," I'd stay. And I'm sure not only would I be pleased, I'm sure everyone would be pleased. In some ways, I am really looking forward to moving closer to my brothers in Australia. There's some really wonderful and nice things about that. But look, if I had the option, I'd stay. And I'm also just want to say I really appreciate that how lucky I am that a treatment pathway exists.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that isn't true. And not only am I lucky that treatment pathway exists, but that I'm in a position to be able to move and do that. And that's not easy. A lot of people can't do that. So I don't want to overplay that. For me, that there's a lot of really good things for me to expect from a move. I would just prefer to be staying here if I could and to continue the work here in my community rather than have to move to another country to get that.
Yes, and that's something that we see so commonly with people with rare disorders, whether it's paying for medicine, paying for treatment overseas, paying for physiotherapy for children overseas because we don't have it in New Zealand. We shouldn't be held to ransom that we have to remortgage, run fundraising pages just for our simple health needs to be met. It's not okay.
And you've talked about the fact that in New Zealand we've got a lot of rural communities who also struggle to get access to treatment, who have to spend more travelling to get access to treatment. We also know that Māori and Pacific communities face a whole nother layer of challenges in terms of accessing equitable treatment. And I think there's a lot yet we have to learn about other communities. And I think about here in Auckland, we've got just a really large Asian community, and often we just don't hear from them about the challenges that they're facing too. So I think there's a lot of concern for me about how equitable our healthcare is around rare disorders. I mean, we already know that it's not equitable, but that those facing other inequities are kind of have that issue compounded. And so, I really think there are some deep questions to be asked about what kind of healthcare do we want in this country. Is it going to be focused on the cheapest possible? Or are we instead going to stop seeing healthcare as some big cost and instead see it as an investment in our people, an investment in our communities? And that's what I want to see. Let's stop seeing this as something that is just hurting the pocketbook and instead see it as just enriching the lives of our people. And we have a long way to go before we get there.
We sure do. We really do.
Yeah.
But I feel like, so you've been chair for 6 years?
Yeah. Oh, I said no, 2020.
2020?
Chair, yeah.
So you've been with rare disorders around 6 years, and you've talked about some of the changes you've seen over that time. What would be the biggest change that you've seen?
Well, I think the biggest change is to see that strategy come in, because the rare disorder strategy is not just the strategy itself. It's a wedge. And I know that the rare disorder strategy has been talked about for quite a long time. John Foreman, many people will know John and his work, obviously establishing Rare Disorders New Zealand, but he sent me a message about the idea, that the original concept of having a strategy. And I'm sorry, forget off the top of my head how long ago that was. So it's taken a long time to come to fruition. I joined at about the time that that Sue was putting the petition together, and one of my first kind of official acts as chair was that Lisa, Foster, Sue, and myself went and saw the Minister of Health about adopting the strategy. And then even then, it seemed like this isn't going to happen. Can't see this happening, but it did happen, and I describe it as a wedge because it has opened that it's kept that door open for us to have more conversations about the things that people with rare disorders face. And without it, we would be struggling to get the official attention we need. With it, it means we can be having conversations with the Ministry of Health, with Health NZ, with Pharmac, that we can't have otherwise. And that they're obliged to actually have those conversations, whereas before they may not have felt that way. So even though that document isn't perfect, the fact that it exists really gives us an opportunity to level up and take the next step. The next step, of course, is seeing it implemented. Ideally, it would be adopted in the IORA legislation review as one of the official strategies of the Ministry of Health. But even so, if we can see that implemented, that's the next level. And that gives us another chance to have bigger conversations about how we could improve that again. So that's been the thing that's really defined the last 5 years.
That's really good. And now we've got a cross-party MP working group, having that strategy in place would just make their job a bit easier and helping guide different agencies of what people with rare disorders in New Zealand need.
Yeah, so I think that the cross-party group almost stems directly from the work that was done to establish the strategy, and that we've gotten a broad base of support, that regardless of the political party, we've got engagement from MPs. They all have their own policies, of course, and their own agendas, and I love arguing about the different political parties' health agendas. But the fact that they're all engaged is crucial. And the fact that the strategy exists kind of creates a framework within which to have those conversations, and we wouldn't have been able to have them before. And I also think that that has led on to things like the Rare Disorders Research Group, our clinical advisory panel, and these other groups that are beginning to coalesce around rare disorders discourse, whether that's on the clinical side and the research side, or whether that's on the political side. And all of that stuff has happened as a result of that drive to get the rare disorders strategy, in my view, because there's been so many conversations about that throughout the sector, and it's kind of been crucial to bring that into being.
And it's bringing the bigger voice to the 299,000 people in New Zealand that can't speak up for themselves.
Absolutely.
Because they live rurally or they are unable to, stuck in hospital,
and
stuck fighting the system.
Some people don't think they can. Like, I mean, I've been in hospital rooms where a doctor has told me, well, you're just going to have to live with that symptom. And I'm not the kind of person to just accept that. And I feel quite happy asking questions of doctors. But for a lot of people, that's really challenging. And sometimes pushed far enough, you'll speak up. But oftentimes it means that you're not getting the advice you need, and that you need, having the courage to ask for a second opinion or to explore different options. That's something that a lot of people don't have. And so I think when those of us who are able to have those conversations, it creates room for other vulnerable people to feel that they can have those conversations and raise those questions. So it's important that as a collective, as an organisation, we're doing that on a national level, but that we also are supporting people within their particular condition to have those conversations too.
Yes, and I find that having pathways is clear for everyone to see what needs to be done, but also for, like in my example, we have an amazing doctor in Philadelphia who are more than happy to speak to our paediatricians here because it is a rare disorder.
Yeah.
They don't see it very often. Having those pathways internationally is incredible, and having a strategy that we can align with other countries. And eventually one day my dream would be that there's a rare care centre in the middle of the world and everyone can access that information and then help these families so they're not getting a diagnosis and being told not to Google it. What do? You go home and you Google it. And thankfully I came across Sue Haldane about 3 months after Lachlan had his diagnosis. And there was a conference in Auckland. But again, we were in the position to be able to go to that conference, but there's a lot of families out there that aren't, and that's where Rare Disorders New Zealand have that hub of being able to connect families with other families going through it, whether it's about the rare disorder or just social connection.
Yeah, I think that sense of connection's crucial, and particularly around international expertise. I mean, I've been really fortunate that the metabolic team in New Zealand is so strong. We've got some wonderful specialists who have been really supportive of me. And in Australia, for my brothers, there's also some excellent metabolic specialists. And, I went to a conference late last year for metabolic lysosomal disorders, of which Fabry belongs to that group. And I met a lot of the Australian specialists, and they all know the New Zealand team by name and very well too. So it's, when you're in the rare disorders world, it is quite a small world often.
Yes.
And so I'm really fortunate that there's plenty of networking and understanding and discussion going on there already. But I think that can only be helped, particularly with some disorders that maybe don't get the attention that they need, or for which in New Zealand you might be the only representative with that particular illness. Having more international connection, I think, is crucial.
Yes, because most of the time our support groups are run by parents of children with the rare disorder or people with the rare disorder themselves.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough living with the rare disorder or caring for someone with a rare disorder and then supporting other people in your community, being able to outreach and have connections throughout the world. And I quite often think that I'm so pleased that I'm the age I am, and this where we can access the internet, we can access Zoom, we can connect with other families. I would hate to think what it was like 50 years ago or even 20 years ago when phones were not as accessible as what they are now, of how lonely and isolating it would have been then, and the information to go and read a book about your condition instead of jumping online and finding the information, finding support groups, finding a common cause.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say that, I was just thinking as you were talking, I just want to shout out to every person doing rare disorder advocacy or support. So you said, talking about the fact that it's often parents and caregivers or the person with a rare disorder themselves. So usually it'll be a person who's holding down a job, raising a family, running a business, might have health concerns of their own, who is somehow finding extra time in the day to fight a system which is not working for them. And, where does that energy come from? It's just incredible. And that has been like just an amazing privilege of this work, is just meeting lots of people like yourself, Alana, but lots of people in this community who just
show up.
They show up. And I don't know how sometimes they keep doing it, but they do. And it's just amazing the impact that has. And it's been inspiring for me in my journey to see those people showing up. And there have been plenty of times, even in the last year particularly, where I've just felt I don't have the energy to do this. I can't be bothered having another argument with Health NZ. I just don't think I've got any juice left in me for that argument. And then you meet someone who shows up and you think, look at what they've overcome to even be at this meeting. And you think, yeah, I've got to give it some more effort. Yeah, so it's kind of amazing. So, I just want to recognise that for a minute, because it's kind of, if anything, it's kind of a superpower of what we do. Is that people who turn up when the odds seem stacked against them, and they do it anyway, and they're usually doing it for others. This is kind of incredible.
Yes, and I found that when we go to like our gatherings we have with other support groups or other members in the rare disorder community, and everyone shows up, they put on their best face, and then you sit down and you have the conversations. And you might not even, I'm thinking of a conversation I had last year in Wellington, and the conversation, I needed that day, but it was a conversation that was given to me, but I needed to hear what that person had to say. And I'm like, this is okay. I can, I wanted to stay in bed that day, but I got up, I did it, and I gained so much more in my life having that particular conversation with that person. And I think about that conversation a lot, actually.
Yeah. And, those conversations give you something when, on those days when you're in a dark place, when you're low, when you just don't think you've got much else to give. And there are plenty of those days too. And it's at that time when those connections you've made become crucial. And I think that a big part of what we do, and a big area for us yet to be better at, both as an organisation and as a society, is recognising the mental health consequences of illness. It's not only the person who's going through that health crisis who is facing mental health challenges. It's their whole family, it's their friends, and it's often those others close to them in the community. One of the things which shocked me about Fabry's disease is that one of the leading causes of death among men with Fabry's disease is suicide. And that really hit home hard. And I obviously understand it. I've been through lots of those challenges. gone through losing a business because I couldn't show up and do the work because I wasn't well. And you go through thinking, well, how am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to be there for my family? I can't do the things physically I used to be able to do. And that creates a real mental health burden, and that can be really tough. And if you're also isolated because you feel that there are not those supports in your family or in your community, or you have to constantly having to explain your illness even to GPs and others, that can be really dangerous. And I think we need to do a better job of recognising that that's an enormous challenge for a lot of people in our community. And we need to find ways to build those connections. I think Rare Disorders New Zealand, given the resources we have, we do an amazing job of that. And I just think that's something we need to do even more of. And we've had conversations about what can we do there to increase support, mental health support for people who are going through this. I don't know what the answers are, but yeah, I that's definitely an area where I see we could do a lot more work.
Yeah, there's so many conversations around mental health and, for the person living with the rare disorder, the families, the parents that have held it together for 5 or 10 years, the wives, the husbands, the children that have held it together for so long, and they break home, they're like, what do we do now? It's like starting over that rare disorder journey again because we have to fight and advocate to stop getting those declines in referrals and keep pushing that prevention prevention would really help the outcome at the other end of it. And I really do hear you as a parent and someone that lives in this community, and I have my own health battles. It shouldn't be so hard all the time just to get our basic needs met, and whether that's 6 counselling sessions or you go to the counsellor every week for a whole year. If that enriches your life enough that you can carry on going through it, then to me that is invaluable.
And I think because we often don't take mental health concerns seriously, we don't see the impact beyond the person with the rare disorder. And I've talked in the past about the way that Pharmac, say, assesses whether somebody should get access to medicine. And their assessment criteria are so narrow that they don't look beyond the person themselves. They don't look at the impact on the family. They don't look at the impact on the community. They don't look at economic factors beyond that person. And one of the things I really appreciated when we were working with Te Aka Whaiora a couple of years ago before they were disbanded, the Māori Health Authority, was that they brought in the Te Ao Māori lens, which said, no, we're not just treating an individual, we're treating their whānau, we're treating the whole community around them. And that was such a wonderful, eye-opening kind of perspective change for me. Because I think when we do that, we not only, it's not just about giving somebody a cure, a pill to make them better. It's about looking at the well-being of themselves and their family as a whole. And that's something I feel which currently in the way we do healthcare in this country, we're not doing enough of. So.
And it goes back to the old saying, it takes a village.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that one of the gifts of doing this work for RDNZ is that sense of community and that fighting against isolation. And I've talked about the fact that RDNZ gave me purpose, or also gave me community, and that's one of the reasons why I'm sad to leave. It's not just abandoning a fight; it feels as though I'm stepping away from a community. Which, I hope I don't step away entirely. But
a community that still really needs more people like you in there advocating for our future children. Yeah. And as a parent, I am I don't live with the rare disorder myself, but I live with it with my children, and I'm worried about their future. Because when I'm not here, who's going to look after them? And that really worries me. And that's why I work so hard now to build foundations for them and connect them with the community around them that can understand what's going on, so they aren't isolated and left out in society.
Yeah, and I think about that for my girls too. It's by the time they're, and I mean they're already reaching adulthood, but when they're thinking of starting a family, are they going to be getting the care they need to do that?
Yes.
And right now, it doesn't feel like they'll get that here. I think we are headed in the right direction. And even though I'm leaving, I don't want to be too gloomy about the prospects for change for healthcare in New Zealand. And not just healthcare, but we're also talking education and social support as well. I don't want to be too gloomy about them because things do change. We have made an enormous amount of progress in the time I've been involved, but well before that as well. And we can make a lot of progress still. And governments change. If we feel that we're not making progress with one, we are fortunate to live in a democracy where that'll change, and then you can talk about progress with the next one.
Yes.
And so building those bridges and building those relationships with MPs of all stripes is crucial for that, and the cross-party group is a big part of that as well. So I don't want to be too gloomy because I feel we're making progress. It's just that for a lot of us, that progress is too slow. I think when your life is involved and your well-being is involved, it's okay to feel angry about how slow that progress is, because it's affecting your very ability to live. And I've seen, unfortunately, too many advocates. We've lost them over even the short period that I've been involved, and that's a heartbreaking thing for me. And I don't want that to be the case when my children are thinking about having a family too. I want us to be able to make enough change that they can feel confident they won't be facing those same hurdles.
Yes, and I feel like that everyone has the chance to have the best possible life. And unfortunately, there is hurdles put in place. But chipping away at those hurdles, I feel like we will eventually get there. I wish could be tomorrow, but it is putting those plans and those strategies in place. And there's amazing researchers we have supporting Rare Disorders New Zealand that I keep seeing them pop up here, there, and everywhere. I'm like, this is awesome, because that is just backing exactly what we're trying to do, just on a more formal educational level. And I feel like I think I first met you when we handed over Sue's petition in Parliament, and I went into Parliament and I was like, this is like being in kindergarten. It was an eye opener for me. It was an experience, and this came out 5 years ago. We handed that petition in, and I feel like in the 5 years that I've been around with rare disorders, it has changed so much. We're more visible. People are knowing that we're out there now. That's another reason I wanted to start this podcast, was that as a mum sitting in the hospital, or a dad sitting in the hospital, or a child sitting in the hospital with their parent, that they can jump on, they can listen to what Rare Disorders New Zealand's about. You don't necessarily want to read paperwork when you get given paperwork from doctors.
Yeah.
And we just start making these connections easier for people to have, and bringing that community a bit more closer, with us being so far away, but also connecting in with Australia and connecting in with the States or the UK or wherever in the world your condition originates from. Having those kind of connections, I feel, is really valuable. And Sue's daughter and my son have the same condition, so I've learned so much from her, and I'm forever grateful for meeting her. But now I'm also passing on the information to the children that are coming through younger than my son, and we're all learning. And it's quite funny, the conversation we have. We're like, hey, they did that last year, or they did that next year. And I feel like for you it would be very different, because you've got siblings and cousins that are living it. So you're also seeing, as a sibling's perspective, of what your brothers are going through, and then also living it yourself, I could not imagine what that is like. And then your mum as well, watching everything happen.
Mum has been really supportive, and she set up the Family Support Group, which really was just a Facebook page, and is slowly making connections. And I know it's really hard for her seeing her sons go through this. So, Mum, if you're listening, just want to acknowledge your hard work in putting that together. I probably, if there's a message I want to get across, it's that what we're doing works.
Yes.
It often works too slowly. Often it's painful. Often there are setbacks. And often the wins feel fragile, like they might be taken away from us as quickly as we've gained them. But it works. And over time, the successes accumulate. And it's sometimes really hard to see them while you're doing it. But whether it's a $20 donation, whether it's showing up to hand over a petition and hand it to people who are acting like toddlers in Parliament, or whether it's just signing the petition, or just sharing things during Rare Disorders Month, that stuff does make a difference. It not only makes a difference in terms of helping to fund and support the work of Rare Disorders New Zealand. It works because it connects people and people see one another. And it's like what you've been talking about, they start to learn from one another. And I think that's the enduring lesson for me. That's the gift I've sort of been given from doing this work, is seeing that when you begin to make those connections in the community, you can make change, even when it feels really, really hard. And the irony is that, yes, I'm leaving before I get to see the fruits of that change for my own condition. But I feel really thrilled at seeing some of the progress we've made for Rare overall. And I'll find ways to continue that support somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, James. I really, really appreciate you talking to me today. And on behalf of, I'm not going to get teary, on behalf of all the families in New Zealand, thank you for not lying in that hospital bed and saying, I'm not doing nothing. Thank you for stepping up, advocating for the people who can't speak for themselves. And we wish you all the very best in Australia.
Yeah.
And
I probably have to join an Australian patient voice group now. And
I've got some contacts for you.
Well, you'll probably hear from me across the Tasman before long.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for us with Australia is that, we aren't, I grew up in Australia and I used to call New Zealand the sixth state. We used to get a lot of backlash at school for that. But anyway, I feel like we can learn a lot from them and they can learn a lot from us. But I also just feel like we're going in the right direction. We just need a bit more push with our strategy just sitting there. It just needs to be implemented.
Yeah.
And with the survey that's come out at the moment and will be handed over in March to Parliament as well, it's out of the 1,200 or so surveys last time, most of the stories were the same, where they struggled with getting support. And it's not just about that, it's about families just trying to stay together as well.
And
absolutely working through with work and schools and a society that's not built for rare disorders and disabilities.
Yeah, and every time we do that survey, we build on the work of the last one, and I think that survey is so crucial in sharing sharing words and experiences from rare people directly. And when I say rare people, I mean the families and carers as much as the person with the condition. And that survey sent such a powerful message to people in power, but it's also a wonderful document for us to reflect on when we're looking at progress over the last, for me, over the last 6 years, but much longer too. So yeah, I encourage everybody to fill in the survey. It takes a little while. It's a few pages long, isn't it? But
It is.
it's really important information.
It's probably the most important 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Have a cuppa, sit down, fill out the survey, be proud that the information you're handing over is going somewhere.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
it's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
There's no point us all sitting back and doing nothing, because nothing will happen.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks very much, James.
Thanks, Alana. Appreciate it.
Maybe I need to come over to Australia and record the next podcast with an update of how you're going.
That's right. We'll get some sweet corporate sponsorship, and you can fly over and visit in Melbourne, and we'll definitely do an episode there.
That sounds fantastic.
Awesome.
We thank James for his time with Rare Disorders New Zealand and wish him and his family all the best on their next journey to Australia. You can listen to Rare Aware and follow us anywhere you listen to podcasts.